All right, hey, shalom, shalom. Before I get started, as always, I want to give all praise to our power, Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Racha, HaKwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, and salutation and blessings to the hopeful elect scattered throughout the four winds of the earth that believe wholeheartedly in the true doctrine that is being pushed throughout the four winds of the earth, who are in hope of mercy and salvation during the time of Jacob's trouble, as well as when Yahweh Shai returns to the planet Earth. Okay. This video here will be mystery of the Gentiles. All right. A video dealing with the big controversy, which really isn't a controversy if the Lord has opened your eyes to see. As you can see, I came across this on social media, and the TikTok video that featured it. Only thing I could go by to try to find the actual interview was the woman's name that was mentioned, and the Spirit led me to find it on this YouTube channel, which is Today. All right. Which, as you can see, the title, it says, "Meet the woman who learned that her mother passed as white." All right. And I'm going to let it play. All right. So you can get the whole backstory of what took place. And this is a sure, and not only her mother, but her mother's brother, which is her uncle. This is a sure sign that, Jake going back then. All right. You didn't even want to show your features, because it was that, as we're gonna read in the Deuteronomy 28. All right. Because of fear of their life, they didn't want to be put to death or be treated a certain way because of who their father was. All right. And this woman looked up her mother's parents. All right. Her mother's looked up her mother to find out what really, the Spirit hopped on her, I believe, to find out who she was and what her background was. Now, her father looks like a so-called white man, but the Spirit hopped on her to find out who her mother was. All right. And her mother, all right, as it turns out, was a so-called black woman. All right. Whose mother was a white woman. Okay. So she passed as a white woman, and the things that she did to hide her blackness, all right, is curses. And this is also Hosea, the first chapter. All right, this is the work that the Heavenly Father said He was going to work, that you will not believe in your day. All right, because just as the apostles and elders have been teaching, all right, since they've been on YouTube and before, you have Israelites among the heathen that look like the heathen. Okay. In this case, this woman tried to hide her features. All right. So without any further ado, all right, I'm going to play the video, and this is for you all black Israelites. All right. For you naysayers, all right, that can't see it. All right, this is just one of many proofs in real life that we were scattered amongst the heathen. All right, we were scattered amongst the heathen through the seed of our fathers, man. All right, and these are the Gentiles that shall receive salvation. All right, not the actual Gentiles. So let's listen.
secretive mother A grandfather she had never met, and a family history that she never suspected. Gail Lukasik could not have predicted what she would discover when she decided to dig into her mother's mysterious past. Watch.
This is my mom and dad. And as far as I know, my father went to his grave never knowing my mom's secret.
That's her mother and that's her father. All right. As you can see, they look like a so-called white couple. Look like going back to the 40s or so. All right, 1940 something. You know, look like the Jim Crow era. All right, but as you can see, her father and this is her mother. Let's see what else.
My parents met during World War II. My mom was an absolutely stunningly beautiful woman. My dad, he had a great sense of humor. He served in the Pacific. He was very proud of that.
In 1944, after the war, Harold Kalina married Elvira Frederick. They settled in a working-class neighborhood in Parma, Ohio. In 1946, their daughter Gail was born. Throughout her childhood, Gail says her mother mystified her in some ways.
She was very meticulous about her makeup. She would wear a light foundation makeup to bed at night, which I thought was a little strange. She would never go out in the sun unless she had a wide brim hat. She would cover her hands with gloves. Really didn't like to be in the sun.
But Gail says the biggest mystery was her mother's selective memory when talking about her own father, Azimar Frederick.
Look at this woman. Look at this woman. All right. She didn't like being in the sun. All right. She covered her hands with gloves. She would wear a big hat and she would wear makeup, a white shade of makeup over her face at night. All right. And the reason she didn't like going in the sun because it would activate that melanin. She would get a little darker. But this shows you, man. All right. It was a curse. Especially going back then. All right. 1940s. You know, the Jim Crow era. To be a so-called black woman or a black man. All right. She tried to escape the curse. She wanted to escape the curses. This is why she did what she did. And she married a white man. Okay. Let's listen some more.
I said, Mom, when was he born? When did he die? Oh, I don't know. I can't remember.
Growing up, Gail never saw one photo of her grandfather. Finally, in 1995, when she was 48, she decided to search for his identity, combing through microfilm.
At first, I couldn't find him. Then I put in the 1900 Louisiana census records, and suddenly I see the name Azimar Frederick. There are all these Fredericks in the same household. Then I noticed something else very curious. Next to all their names is the letter B. So I go to the head of that column to see what it stands for, and it says race. So B, does that mean black?
Gail wanted to confront her mother, but first she reached out to the state of Louisiana, requesting her mother's birth certificate.
I pretended I was my mother and I had lost my birth certificate. I opened that birth certificate and there in parentheses were 3 letters, COL. So I wrote to the state again and said, my birth certificate said COL. Would you please explain to me what that means? They sent me a very official letter back and they said, COL is for colored. I just was speechless. I didn't know if my mother knew, but I'm thinking, how could she not know this? And why has she never said anything to me?
We're joined now by Gail Lukasik, who has written about her mother's...
So her mother hid that her father was a so-called black man, and she found this out. All right. And remember, this is going back to the 1940s. You know, she was born before that, of course. But when she started to have her own family, she hid it from her own children. All right. And her husband. All right, and you're going to hear a little more what she said, don't tell nobody until I'm dead. All right, and this is, to me, this is part of the curses. This is the book of Deuteronomy 28, verse 66. And thy life, Deuteronomy 28:66, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee. What time are we talking about? We're talking about the 1940s, all right, where you had segregation, okay? You had Jim Crow laws, okay? Jake was barely, allowed to, as you saw, her birth certificate said colored. Back then, you would see signs on water fountains. You would see signs on restaurants, all right, restrooms that segregated the coloreds from the whites, all right. So her life hung in doubt before her. This is why she hid her who she was, all right, for a very long time, all right. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night. If you to the point to where you wearing makeup, a white shade of makeup on your face at night, all right, you in fear of your life, all right, and shall have none assurance of thy life, all right. And this was the case with this woman, I believe, in the spirit. Not this woman, but her mother, okay. So let's listen to a little more.
Passed in a new book, White Like Her. Welcome, Gail.
Thank you very much.
Great to see you here. So you did finally work up the nerve to ask your mother about this birth certificate. It took you 2 years, but you finally sat down with her. You knew it had to be face to face.
Yes, it had to be. This is not a conversation you have on the telephone.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you asked her why she's listed as, quote, colored on the birth certificate.
I did. I told her I'd found her birth certificate. It said colored. And she became very indignant with me. And she said, I don't know what birth certificate you have, but mine says I'm white. So I thought, well, wait a minute. So I said, Mom, I have some other documents that I could show you. The census records, your father's listed as black. And I have a letter from the state of Louisiana saying that COL means colored. Well, she got very quiet, very quiet. And she's sitting in this large chair, and it almost seemed like the chair was swallowing her because she got very small. And she looked at me and she said, you have to promise me you will never tell anyone until after I die. And
that's the curses, all right. She was so ashamed of being her father being a so-called black man, she hid it her entire life, and then told her daughter, all right, that you have to promise that you won't tell nobody until I'm dead. If that ain't the curses, what is, man? All right.
She said, because how will I hold my head up with my friends if they know?
Wow.
Yeah.
What year was that?
That was 1997 when I confronted her.
Another scripture just came to mind, all right? Hosea, the first chapter, all right? Because that's a state of shame, all right? That's a state of shame that she displayed. She's ashamed of being the so-called black woman, all right? Let me put that in place. I believe it's Hosea 1. Let me see. Number children to see. Yeah, no, it's not it. Let's type it in. Hopefully, good blue. I knew Blue Letter wasn't gonna pull it up. Let me go to Google. All right. She's ashamed of being a black woman, man. All right. She said, how would she lift up her head to her friends if they knew that she was a black woman? All right. Zephaniah 3 and 19. Let's see. Yep, that's it. Zephaniah 3:19. Let's get it. Zephaniah 3:19. Behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halteth, and gather her that was driven out, and will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. All right. And her hiding her identity and telling her daughter to wait till I die. All right. And then you could tell people, all right, she was ashamed of being a black woman. All right. Let's look up this word shame. All right. Which the Hebrew word is bashath. All right. Bashath. Shame, confusion, ashamed, greatly shameful thing. Shame, shameful thing. Shame, the feeling and the condition as well as its cause. All right. By implication, specifically, an idiot, ashamed, confusion, greatly, put to shame, full thing. All right, because it was you couldn't just her story alone. And can you imagine how many other people? Because she ain't the only one. Guaranteed, she's not the only one. All right. Shame, often with the addition to be covered with shame. All right. And she's literally covered with it. All right. To where she didn't want the sun to activate her melanin. She would wear big hats. She would cover her hands with gloves. She hated being in the sun because she knew that if the sun hit her, it would activate that melanin in her flesh and she would become darker. All right. It says ignominy, a vile and ignominious condition. All right. And going back to the 1940s, okay, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, it was shameful. All right. Because this was when Jake was totally looked at as less of a man, less of everything. You were colored. You can't even drink out of the same water fountain. Can't use the same bathroom. Can't eat at the same restaurants. Can't sit in the same positions of buses. All right. So she was ashamed of it. And she didn't want to be treated as Jake did when she was one. So how many more people going back to this time you think had to deal with this type? You had probably millions, because Jake was popping the white woman, man. All right. And the white woman was wanting to get popped by Jake on the low. All right. It says in nakedness and shame, an idol which deceives the hope of the worshipers and puts them to shame. Which, we get the point. All right. So let's go back to the video. Listen to a little more.
So she had spent her adult life passing.
Yes.
A term you use in the book. Can you tell the audience what that is?
She was passing for white. My mother, if you look at the photographs of her, she visually does look white. But on her, her birth certificate and the census record.
Visually looks white. All right. This is why you hear us here at Great Millstone say that you have Israelites, all right, that look like the heathen, all right, that live amongst the heathen. All right. You got them in all nations. When you watch these different war movies, like the one that what's my man, Spike Lee, the one Spike Lee did called The Five Bloods. I believe that came out in 2020 or somewhere around there. One of the Vietnam vets, when they went back to find that gold that they had stashed, he had a whole daughter out there. All right. And you had many of that happening and going on during the time of Vietnam. All right. You had Puerto Ricans leaving their seed over there, and you had Judah leaving their seed over there. All right, so-called so-called Puerto Ricans and so-called Negroes leaving their seed over there, which is the kingdom of Judah and the kingdom of Israel. They were leaving their seed over in them Vietnamese women. All right. And coming back to the States and those children growing up, sons and daughters growing up and being segregated from their people. They show you that in the movie. All right. Because they brought seed forth through the so-called enemy, which was the Negro and Latinos of America. All right.
Listed as colored or black. So when she decided to marry my father, who by the way is white, she moved north to Ohio, and from that moment on, she took on the white race that she passed. She went from being designated black to being designated white.
You write in the book about that moment you saw COL and understood that to mean, quote, colored, and write about it as the day I found out I wasn't who I thought I was.
Yes.
What did you go through upon this realization?
You know, the initial discovery was 1995 when I was at the Family History Center. I always think about this. I walked into that Family History Center a white woman, totally convinced I was a white woman. And I walked out of there and I didn't know what I was. I didn't know if I was mixed race. I didn't know if I was black, if I was still white. I had no idea. It was shocking to me.
Well, in her case, if her father was indeed a so-called white man, she's a white woman, all right? But if her father was, you know, a confusion of face as well, then she would be a black woman, all right? Or her father could be a confusion of face Latino man, all right? Because he looked like he was a military man, all right? And the spirit hopped on her to look this up, so you never know. She could be an Israelite woman, all right?
You know, it's like finding out you're another person that you didn't know.
Right, and your mom is another person. I know you write in the book about how you feel now in retrospect she left clues for you like little breadcrumbs through the forest, and we're going to talk about what some of those were, along with the fact that Gail says her own dad was a bigot and her mom knew it. We'll get into that next. And we're back now with Gail Lukasik, who discovered a whole new family when she uncovered her mother's secret. Her mom had an African-American father, a mixed-race mother, and she had run away from her past and had been passing as white since she was a young woman. Gail, thank you again. So talk about those clues like breadcrumbs you wrote about.
Well, my mother had some quirky habits that as a child, you accept your mother's quirky habits, right? That's my mother. She would never went out into the sun unless she had a hat on, many times gloves, so she avoided the sun.
Again, that was to keep that melanin from being activated, all right, that she had within her DNA because of her father, all right?
And she never wanted to visit home, which I thought was odd. I asked her one time, can we visit your family in New Orleans? And no, it would depress me too much to visit home. And here's the strangest one for me, is that she always wore makeup to bed, a little light foundation. And as I got older, I did question that. I said, Mom, how come you wear makeup to bed? And she said, well, Gail, you never know if you would get sick in the middle of the night and the ambulance would come, and you always want to look your best because you'll get treated better at the hospital.
Yeah, you want to look like a white woman, okay? You want to look like a white woman so you'll be treated better at the hospital in those times, all right? So this is a sure case of an Israelite foreigner, all right, dealing with her mother. And when you watch the rest, which I'm not going to play the rest. If you want, you can just look it up. All right, look it up here. This Meet the Woman Who Learned That Her Mother Passed as White. It's just a 10-minute video. And also her mother's brother, which was her uncle, all right, was the same type of situation. So you had this going on a lot during those times, all right, where the mother probably instilled in the children. If they looked white, if they had a lighter complexion, all right, that they should do what they could to pass as white because of the laws and the segregation, all right, the potential of being lynched, all right, especially for the males, okay, during that time, all right. And this is why I read Deuteronomy 28:66, all right. So you got this amongst all nations. Israel is scattered amongst all people, all right. Now let's get a couple more scriptures and I'll close it out. Hosea 1. I'm not Hosea. It can't be Hosea. Let me see. Is that Habakkuk? Yep, Habakkuk, the first chapter. And we're going to start right at the 5th verse. All right, that's all we need is the 5th verse. Habakkuk 1:5. Behold, ye among the heathen. All right. Her mother was among the heathen. All right. Past as white her entire adult life. All right. She was among the heathen. Okay. Behold, ye among the heathen, and regard and wonder marvelously. For I will work a work in your days which ye will not believe, though it be told you. And we just witnessed a real life work that the Most High worked. All right, that you had Israelites afraid. All right, to proclaim who they were. All right, specifically in this time because of the laws and things that was going on to Jake during that time. All right. But that was the work the Lord made happen. All right. To where she hid herself amongst the Edomites. All right. Until she, basically on her dime bed. All right. But her daughter looked it up. All right. Now let's go to the book of Acts 13. Acts 13. And we're going to start about the 37th verse. And we're going to read to 49, all right? The 41st verse is when Paul quotes what Habakkuk said in Habakkuk 1:5, all right? It says, Acts 13:37, but he whom the Most High raised again saw no corruption. Talking about Yahushua. Be it known unto you, therefore, men and brethren, that through this man is preached unto you the forgiveness of sins. And by him all that believe are justified from all things, from which ye could not be justified by the law of Moses. Beware therefore lest that come upon you which is spoken of in the prophets. Behold, ye despisers, and wonder, and perish. For I work a work in your days, a work which ye shall in no wise believe, though a man declare it unto you. And the despisers are, we're going to read, you're going to see the Jews be upset with Paul. All right. Verse 42. And when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles, all right, what Gentiles is this? All right, just like Gail's mother type Gentiles, all right. But Gail's mother knew, all right. All right, ethnos, a multitude of individuals of the same nature or genus, all right. So this is talking about the stock of Abraham, the stock of Israel. All right. Matter of fact, when you read up, it speaks about the stock of Abraham. Let me get that real quick in this chapter right here in verse 26. All right. When you go to the stock of Abraham, what is this talking about? Genes. All right. Genos. All right. The genes of Abraham, the offspring, the kindred, family, stock, tribe, nation, nationality, or descent from a particular people. the aggregate of many individuals of the same nature, all right, kind or sort. So who was Paul talking to in Acts the 13th chapter? Well, he was in the synagogue. He was speaking to the Jews, but you also had the Gentiles amongst them. And where were they? They were in Antioch. All right. So let's go back down. All right. Verse 42. It says, and when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles, the Israelite foreigners, besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Now, when the congregation was broken up, many of the Jews and religious proselytes followed Paul and Barnabas, who, speaking to them, persuaded them to continue in the grace of the Most High. And the next Sabbath day came almost the whole city together to hear the word of the Most High. All right. But when the Jews saw the multitudes, they were filled with envy and spake against those things which were spoken by Paul, contradicting and blaspheming. Then Paul and Barnabas waxed bold and said, it was necessary that the word of the Most High should first have been spoken to you, but seeing ye put it from you, and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, lo, we turn to the Gentiles. What's this word here for Gentiles? Okay. Is it the same word? Yes, it is. Ethnos. All right. Ethnos, a multitude of individuals of the same nature and gene. Okay. For so hath the Lord commanded us, saying, I have set thee to be a light of the Gentiles, that thou shouldest be for salvation unto the ends of the earth. And when the Gentiles heard this, they were glad and glorified the word of the Lord. And as many as were ordained to eternal life believed. And the word of the Lord was published throughout all the region. All right. So you're going to have Israelites that look like white people. You're going to have Israelites that look like Chinese people. You're going to have Israelites that look like Japanese. You're going to have Israelites that look like small hatters. You're going to have Israelites that look like all the nations. All right. Simply because it goes back to the curse where the Lord said he would scatter us among all people. And then we'll end it with that. All right. The Lord said he was going to scatter us among all people. All right. Here in the book of Deuteronomy 28 and 64. All right. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 64. And the Lord will scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth, even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods. All right. Which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. All right. So we were sold amongst all these people. We were scattered amongst all these people that are on the earth. All right. And it says, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease. You think that woman had ease? She was, every day of her life, she was hoping that her husband didn't find out that she was a black woman. All right. That's a state of having no ease. Okay. Neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. She didn't have rest. She constantly had to put on makeup before she went to bed. She putting on gloves and shit when she went out in the sun, put on a big hat so that melanin wouldn't be activated. All right. Okay. It says, but the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. And you can't tell me she didn't go through that. All right. Hiding that secret for that long. Okay. So that's pretty much it through the spirit. Lord will, this was edifying to the hopeful elect out there. Again, you going to have Israelites that look like every people on the planet Earth. All right. They going to come to this. All right. But it's all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So Lord will, again, Lord will, this was edifying to the hopeful elect, giving all praise to Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai, and we on to the next. Shalom.